Hello and welcome to the Authority of Love. I'm with co-host David Walls of the Family Foundation here in Kentucky, and we're here on Family Foundation Friday. David, welcome once again, brother. Glad to have you.
It's good to be with you.
Well, we enjoy this, don't we?
We do.
For the most part.
Yeah.
There are certain days that there's struggles with it and some things we got to cover, but once again, there's a lot of good momentum going on. Before we jump into all the action that's going on with the legislature and how that impacts us and our culture, I just want to give a plug. My daughter called me last week and said, Dad, are you going to see The Chosen? They're putting it out in theaters this time, David. And so I asked you, and you said you've been watching it with your family,
Yeah.
but you hadn't seen this launch yet.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it to you, your family,
It's
and the listeners.
expensive to take a whole family to the theaters, Greg. I'm just
I
going to
got
wait
you.
for the free streaming, I
Okay.
think.
I hear you. We just went. I was going to call her the same day and ask her for a date,
Oh, okay.
with my
Yeah.
daughter, and she called me and beat me to the punch. So we went, I just got to say it's fabulous. Now, I know there are people out there and different platforms and thoughts on this, but I found it to be not only very entertaining, but much more importantly, everything I've seen in there biblically is solid. Now, they have some dramatic license.
Yeah.
And that's okay, but it's never taken away from or changed the biblical truths that they're talking about. So I found it to be good. I'd love to talk with you about that if you'd like to. That's for another show. So contact me at loveandlordship@gmail.com, loveandlordship@gmail.com. We'll do the pros and cons, the likes and dislikes. Let's talk. So just wanted to plug that, David,
Yeah.
because I really love it. I think there's good things there. I know we got a new citizen that's coming out, and there's a lot going on with that. So if you want to share a little bit about that, we're going to jump into some of those bills that you wanted to cover today.
Yeah. Well, we're excited that our legislative edition of our Kentucky Citizen should be in people's mailboxes that are on our email list. They can also, if you're watching the video version, you can see it. You can also go to our website and read all the main articles on our website at kentuckyfamily.org. But this is one of our most important editions that we put out because we highlight some of the important priority pro-family bills that we've identified. Also highlight some of the concerning bills that would negatively impact life and family as well. And then just some other good information. We educate people in the legislative process, provide an opportunity to encourage them to make at least 3 phone calls and send 3 emails in support of some of these bills. Our policy director, Michael Johnson, has a really thoughtful piece in there where he kind of talks about where he comes from and viewing the work of the Family Foundation, our work on public policy, reminding folks that that's just the start of what we do. And some really good information. And I'm so thankful and excited for the members on our team and volunteers that we've been having come to the office that help distribute these to churches across the Commonwealth. If you would like copies for your church, reach out. Send us an email at info@kentuckyfamily.org. We'd be happy to get extra copies to you and your congregation.
And speaking of that, we've got several of those bills that you've highlighted in there, many more, but we want to highlight on the program today. I know one of them is Senator Mike Wilson and Representative Jennifer Decker's bills on the DEI bill. That's what they're calling it. Explain to people what that is.
So this is, there's been a lot of attention on this issue, Greg, on the issue. DEI standing for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And these are policies that many schools, particularly higher education, although it's trickled down into
public education,
public education,
yes,
K through 12. We've seen these in corporate policies,
and Disney being
really,
one of the main ones, right?
Kind of thing. And really, while the name diversity, equity, we got to be careful because when we're a nation founded on equality, we advocate for equality under the law. Unfortunately, so many times when the word equity is used, they're talking about equal outcomes instead of just simply equal opportunities.
Exactly right.
And
I wonder why they didn't call it DIE. I don't know. I'm just food for thought.
But what's really behind, unfortunately, most of these policies are some very, very harmful ideologies, whether it be critical theory and critical race theory. Many times these policies are directly attached to promoting woke LGBTQ ideology. And what has been happening, particularly on our college campuses, is a lot of instances where these policies are being used where professors are having to almost swear allegiance to or sign, from the church biblical context, it's almost like a statement of faith, saying you have to affirm and ascribe to these things.
Let's be honest, it's a religion. So you're right. You're on target there.
And again, this is where we come back to the reality of the brokenness of mankind. I mean, principally, some of these things are not wrong in and of itself. But the reality is the way that they're being implemented is actually causing the exact opposite of what they're claiming to help fix. And they're actually promoting division. They're promoting discrimination. They are leading to policies where folks are having to self-censor or feel like they can't speak, violating free speech, viewpoint discrimination.
They're silencing them. That's a big part of the reason for it. And let's go one step deeper. The core and foundation of most of these, you mentioned CRT and LGBTQ. Yes, they're all in there. But the core of those is Marxist communistic ideology. That's where it's coming from. And you were at a committee hearing just yesterday, right?
Yeah. So there was the Senate, one of the Senate bills that would seek to add some protections in our public universities against this is Senate Bill 6. Senator Mike Wilson has filed this bill. You mentioned there's also been a very robust version that's been filed in the House. That bill, I don't believe, has been heard yet. That's House Bill 9 by Representative Jennifer Decker. But the hearing that took place this week, and it was passed out of the Senate Education Committee.
Good to hear.
But there was some really, really powerful testimony that was shared about the impact of these policies. And I just have to, I've got to mention one. Rebecca Keefe, who is a University of Kentucky student and is also a member of the pro-life Wildcats there. And I've had the opportunity to meet her before at a pro-life event, but she was just very bold and courageous and came and shared a couple of instances in which these types of policies are just impacting students tremendously.
Herself, right?
Yeah. So in a situation where she was applying for essentially an RA type position, she was completely discriminated against because of this, and asked to potentially have to continue on in the interview process to essentially have to affirm some of these statements. And then she also shared a situation in the classroom where she was really targeted and singled out because she dared to express the belief that there's only two genders, male and female.
Scientific biological truth.
Right.
Right.
So and there was some other testimony that was provided, but it was very clear that these kinds of policies, while they may not all be called DEI policies, these types of policies are impacting students here at the University of Kentucky. Heard testimony indicating some things happening at the University of Louisville. And so what these policies would do, what SB 6 would do, would essentially define some very discriminatory practices that unfortunately these policies are leading to, and say that universities can't discriminate in this way in terms of students, in terms of how they're going to hire faculty or staff.
They're probably even admit students at some point, right?
Right.
It likely would even enter into that.
So this bill and these other efforts are really about protecting our First Amendment free speech rights, free association, and working towards policies that don't discriminate.
Yeah, which highlights another area that I know you wanted to talk about today. Representative Shane Baker has a parental rights in education. If we're not willing to give it back there, these things are going to happen more and more. Talk to us about what's happening with Representative Baker's bill.
Yeah, so there is we talked a lot last year, Greg, about Senate Bill 150.
Yes.
And I'm getting out our Citizen. There's some good information in our Citizen on House Bill 304, Greg. This is really a follow-up to that, to say, since Senate Bill 150 went into effect, what we've seen is some school districts that have been refusing to follow some of the protections that were put in place. Right. And then we've also seen, Greg, as you and I talked about, the situation that developed in Anderson County, where there was a school counselor that was working behind parents' backs, subversively, hiding information from parents. And so really the crux of House Bill 304 is it would clarify, add some further parental rights protections, require active notification of parents when certain things may be found out by schools. If you're talking about if a student's getting counseling, parents should be notified about that. Other issues that parents need to be notified. And then importantly, it would also provide an enforcement mechanism where a parent can ensure that the law is being followed in their school.
Yeah, that's
because
good.
That's really become a key sometimes, is when these types of situations have happened, sometimes even with the laws in place, there's not a mechanism to force the school to follow the law. Yeah. And so that's really needed. So we'll be sharing some more about that, but I'm encouraged by the work that's been done on that issue. That's House Bill 304.
Great. And then we had another big day just this week, right?
Right.
National Women in Sports Day.
Yeah.
Our own Riley Gaines here in Kentucky, University
Yeah.
of Kentucky, was part of that.
Yeah.
Representative David Hale has a bill that's going to do some really strong things that shouldn't be needed, but they are.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. This is House Bill 390, kind of a women's Bill of Rights, really building upon the Save Women's Sports issue and the issue that Riley Gaines was so instrumental in helping lead the effort and shining a light for the need for those laws. This bill, House Bill 390, Greg, would simply just very clearly define what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a girl, what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, and to provide protections and to ensure that local government and any future government couldn't redefine those terms based on, unfortunately what we're seeing, LGBTQ-driven ideology that's seeking to subvert what it means to be a woman.
Or whatever gender you want to call it, right?
Right.
So basically what they're doing is they're actually going to the biology and the science and saying, we're going to use the scientific evidence and the biological reality,
Right.
and we're going to define it in law.
Right.
Since people are trying to do what they want to do with it.
Right.
And it's a great bill. We need
Because,
to
the reality is, Greg, we have definitions in law of these things,
Yeah,
but unfortunately they have been, and in some cases, you've even seen courts do this, take terms that we all know what they mean and then subvert them and sometimes turn them completely on their head and have them mean the exact opposite of what we all know them to mean. So that's an important bill as well. But I chuckle a little bit here just to bring home this point, Greg, about the moral insanity that we're living in. There was another bill and issue that was heard in committee this week, and there was a conversation, and we've seen this pop up before, where there were some concern amongst some pro-LGBT members and the ACLU that there was a reference to pregnant woman as opposed to saying a pregnant person or a pregnant individual.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the ACLU of Kentucky was tweeting about this, Greg, and I just have to bring this out. They actually tweeted a quote reminder, I guess, to all Kentuckians and everyone that people, this is what they said, people of all genders can be pregnant. So I just, sometimes we have to read these things aloud and say, this is the ACLU.
Right.
This is an organization that is actively lobbying and advocating, not just at the Kentucky Capitol, all across the country. Yeah. And they are pushing, essentially erasing what it means to be a woman by saying that men can be pregnant. Yeah. It's moral insanity. And I just bring that up to say another important reminder that we live in a culture in which we need to celebrate women's sports for women, by women, so they can have the opportunity and true equality that they deserve as women.
Exactly right. Now, here, I know we don't have much time, but I want to, if your viewers can see this, if not, we're talking about Martin Cothran's article on school choice. We don't have a lot of time, so we'll get back to this, but just briefly mention that.
Yeah, excited.
Great article,
Martin, who is our senior policy analyst, wrote a great piece. It's on the back page of the Citizen. It's up on our website as well about the need for school choice and how really that's the path forward for Kentucky. There's been so many other states that have moved forward in that direction. And this really is the
Let's
path
have
forward.
freedom of choice.
Absolutely.
Let's give people that.
Let's empower parents to make educational choices that meet the needs of their students and children.
And so once again, you can go to the Citizen. If you're watching, you'll see that. If not, you can hear it. Or go to KentuckyFamily.org, and there's calls to action on many of these. If you have questions, contact David in the Family Foundation office. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for your prayers. Thanks always to the Lord. Make it a great day, and God bless in Christ.